Hello, my name is Ashley, this is Faithful Rattos, and welcome or welcome back. So in today's video, it's a vlog, as you can tell, and it's going to be an intros vlog. I am trying to get all 8 of my books, apart from RK who's in with the girls, in a happy coalesced group. So Tiffin and Toast who got neutered recently, Azriel and Stender, Azriel who got neutered recently, my 2 new babies who aren't even babies anymore, and my 2 oldies who had been in a retirement cage, but the other rats that were in that group with them have since passed away, and because there's 2 of them, and Ezio's HLD is far more advanced than Tushy's is, I'm worried that one of them will end up alone, so I've put those in intros as well, which is annoying because I had hoped that they could just live out their days in a retirement cage, but I don't think that's going to happen, because I don't have any of the rats that are even slightly at an old age anymore. So that's the plan. They're all in here. I'm going to show you them. It's going okay so far. The only person who's causing us problems is Stender, who seemed to actually calm down a little bit. Don't mind the flypaper. That is because of all of the fungus gnats we've been dealing with recently. We're trying to get on top of them. We're using this and mosquito dunks and everything. I might make a video about it, about how to deal with fungus gnats. But yeah, let me show you them. So here they are. Toasty here has been a really good boy. I will give you an update about Toast in a second because I think we're having post-neuter complications with his incision. Then we have everybody else being good. Azriel is a little bit tense, but way, way better than he has been in previous intros. The babies are being good. Stendar here, this Agouti, is the one that we're watching currently. Ezio and Tushy are 2 oldies, are doing okay as well. So yeah, fingers crossed this works. Though you'll be able to tell by the title of the video whether it's worked or not. But yeah. So, we had a little bit of an altercation. Stendar has decided that it's his turn, possibly cause problems. I've threatened him with a neuter. I've given him 1 more chance. And if he's causing any more problems during these intros, then he'll be taken out and get him neutered as well, which is very annoying. But in the midst of that, Ezio got a tension slice. So I just feel really bad because part of me wanted to keep the oldies by themselves, but obviously if one of them were to die, then the other one would be left alone. And that's not okay, so they do need to be in the intros. I've cleaned up Ezio and I've given him some Metacalm. I just feel really awful about it, and this is the worst part of intros. Because, like, you don't know how things are going to go until you try it. So yeah, so fingers crossed it remains okay. If it carries on, then Stendar will be booked in to be neutered, and I'll keep you updated. So, as I mentioned earlier, when I was getting Tiffin and Toast out, I noticed that Toast had a swollen scrotum area. He was neutered through his scrotum, it was about 3 weeks ago. And obviously, it's been quite hard to handle him because he doesn't like to be picked up out of the cage. And because of that, I haven't had a handle on him in a good few days now. I'm assuming that it's some sort of abscess. We're going to the vet tomorrow. So that will be fun. Obviously, because I'm still on my crutches. If you haven't seen any recent videos, I injured myself 2 weeks ago and I'm still on crutches. So Rat Dad will have to come with me. And because they're in intros, all of them are going to come, so that's going to be interesting. Nothing like a vet trip to bond everyone really tightly. That's what's going to happen tomorrow, and I'll keep you updated on that situation. Hopefully it's just a simple management thing and we're not going to have to put him through another procedure, because that will be very annoying for him and everything. Hopefully if there does need to be a procedure, it's a minor one, and maybe that can happen tomorrow. I don't know. But yeah, that's the update. So, we're having dinner very peacefully, aren't we, boys? We've got Tiffin here. That is Kiryu right here. And Ezio, Tushy, think that's Stendar, Asriel, Toast is behind there, and I'm not really sure where Kiryu is. Not Kiryu, where Grover is, but there we go, nice boys. So, I'm in bed, like, it's like very late. I'm like, oh, what is that noise? And it's, I think that's Grover, boxing and boggling. I don't know whether you can hear that noise, but it's definitely him. They've been okay. They're in my room overnight just in case anything does go on, but I think they'll be fine. I hope so anyway, because I've got to go food shopping and stuff tomorrow. But yeah, I'll see you in the morning when we go to the vet to check out Toasty's lump. And yeah, see you later. So, we're back now from the vets. Adam is just, Rattos is just taking them upstairs. They've been good. So we're going to go out for breakfast at a local cafe. And then we have to go food shopping. So we're going to leave them, trust them. They've been fine. So she's been biting ears overnight and making people squeak a little bit. But everyone's been super relaxed. And I think that trip to the vet has bonded them quite well. They were so cute at the vet, and Connor was like, wow, they all look so serene. It was great. They were wonderful. So update on Toast, we're going to manage it conservatively for now with antibiotics and anti-inflammatories, which I've already got at home, so I didn't need to buy them, thankfully. And also thankfully Connor put it as a post-op check, so I don't actually have to pay for that, so that was nice. Especially with my vet bills the past couple of months. And if it doesn't go down, so he thinks it's possibly either an abscess or like a suture reaction, and if it doesn't go down within a week, then we have an appointment booked for them to go in surgically and see what it is, if it's a hernia or whatever, and fix it. So that will be next Tuesday if he needs it. Hopefully it does go down. Hopefully now I can sort of monitor it, now that they're in intros, and I can handle him a little bit better. So yeah, that's the plan for Toast. He seems in good spirits and really happy and relaxed with the rats now, so that's really good. And yeah, that's the update for today. I will update you when I move them up. So we've moved up. Stendar had a little moment, but he seems calmed down now. Ezio has now started to bite ears again. I'll try and do a sit down segment about this ear biting because it's odd to me. Trying to keep Stendar a bit calm because he's being weird today. But I think for him there's just been a whole lot of hormonal shift in his group, so it sort of makes sense. I think either him or I think probably he will end up kind of taking charge for now. And I think soon it might actually be sort of relinquished and given to one of the new babies. I don't think Tiffin is the type of guy who would care about that. Asriel and Toast and neutered. And yeah, and then there's the two oldies. So yeah, be good boys. So, I've just given them a hammock. Everyone is doing very well. Stendar, I don't know whether you can see. He's looking a bit tense. I think he's trying his best to be in charge, and he's not quite, he doesn't seem quite cut out for it, and I think that's what's going on. But yeah, it's going okay. I've only just put it in though, but people do seem to be pretty relaxed. So there's that. Tiffin, throughout this whole intro process, has been, I would say, oblivious. And I've really enjoyed that. He's been excellent. Toast and Tiffin have become very people-focused when I'm by the cage, which is good to know that they're getting there. Who's squeaking and why? Is it too squishy? Is it too squishy? Ezio, why did you just bite his ear? What is going on there? Being an odd boy. So today is Thursday, so this is day 4 of intros, if I remember correctly. This is day 2 of having the hammock. I think what I'm going to do actually is keep them in this stage for another day, and this is mainly because I really don't want to rush it. We are a bit, I wouldn't say precarious, but if Tushy and Ezio carry on with the ear biting, somebody may get quite annoyed, and that somebody probably will be Stendar. So I'm just giving them a chance to fully settle into this dynamic, but I think it is going pretty well. The only sort of squeaks and squabbles that have happened is when somebody is getting their ear bitten, so I think that's a good sign. Tiffin and Toast have settled in so well. Yeah, it's gone really well so far anyway. So the living room looks like this because we're doing the girls' cage. So the girls are all in here waiting for a new cage. I've moved the boys up here into an Alaska for their intros as well. And I also got a quote back from the vet about the procedure that Toast is probably going to have on Tuesday because of the swelling lump thing in his scrotum area. I was expecting to pay a couple of $100 at least for this procedure, basing off of the cost of like Sinner's lump surgery. Well, I got 2 quotes back, and I'll put the information up on the screen, and both of them are like £37, which is absolutely crazy. Obviously I was prepared to pay a lot more than that, but yeah, so we'll see what happens. There's obviously unforeseen circumstances that could make it bigger, but wow, I really wasn't expecting that. But so here's the girls' cage. It's a bit different than what I've done in the past. I don't know who that is fighting. But yeah, that's the girls' cage this time. I've got some sprays from Boggle Buddies and my favourite pinecone perch. But yeah, I think it turned out okay. Hello. So I thought I could end this vlog with a little bit of a Q&A section, because I found those intro updates were getting a little bit boring. It's all going very well. They're in the Alaska now. I've given them a hammock. Well, they were in Alaska yesterday and I gave them a hammock this morning, and everyone's really settled. I'm hoping that by early on in next week they can get into the big cage. That will really depend on what's going on with Toast and his incision and whatever that procedure turns out to be. I'm going to do another vlog next week, so keep your eye out for that. That will probably let you know what's going on with Toast and what ended up happening. I'm really intrigued as to what's actually going on. It hasn't changed at all, really, and it does feel soft. So I'm leaning towards it being a hernia, but we'll see what happens. So I asked for some questions on Instagram and on the YouTube community tab. There's just a couple, some kind of interesting ones, so I thought I could answer those quickly for the end of the vlog for something different. So somebody asked what are the ingredients of my dry mix. So it changes every time I do it. I don't have like a set thing that I use. I just follow the principles and see what I can find that month. For my base mix, currently I'm using Vasilla Lager Young Pigeon. I think it's Alan and Page Greepy Rabbit, but it could be something different. And I'm using the... I can't for the life of me remember what the name of the conditioning mix that I'm using, but I'm using one of the horse conditioning mixes. Then also barley rings, pasta. I really like the ones in Sainsbury's. They're like different grain pastas. So there's a rice pasta and a buckwheat pasta. I also really like using rose petals. I like the colour that it gives the mix, but everything else really is like a mixture of things that fit in those things. I don't have one set ingredient that I use, if that makes sense. Emily from Pets of Space asked, how would you help a backyard breeder to become ethical if they asked you? What's your stance on that happening? Do you think it's possible? Does that make them a good breeder? Now, I think anyone can, you know, make a mistake and grow from it, and that is really, really true. However, I think the label of backyard breeder would stick around for a while, and not necessarily in my opinion, but, you know, in the public's opinion. But it depends on what makes them a backyard breeder. If they're a backyard breeder because they sell their animals at different prices, like because one is a Dumbo or one is like silken and they think it's like special or something, I feel like that's a bit of an easy fix. If part of the reason why they're a backyard breeder is because their lines come from pet shops or whatever, I feel like that's also like kind of tricky to deal with, because even me thinking about my prospective breeding program, I do feel attached to that line that doesn't even exist. And I know that breeders do become really attached to the line of rats that they breed. So to have that being taken away, I feel like that would be a really big hit to a backyard breeder that wanted to do things right. But that's one thing that they could change. But it also depends, are they a backyard breeder because they keep their rats badly? And that's a pretty easy fix. And if they, you know, if you talk to them about it and they learn from it and they fix it, then I feel like it's a bit of a complicated question, because being a backyard breeder isn't like a one size fits all. Like, there's a bunch of different red flags, and each backyard breeder that is a backyard breeder will have a different mixture of those red flags. And so it really depends on the specific breeder and like why they're a backyard breeder, and is that thing fixable. I think there are definitely circumstances where it is, but it does come from a really sort of like brave and like honest mindset that you admit mistakes that you've made and then go on to change it. I do think there's some important things for a breeder to do. One of them is to source from good lines. Another one is to be involved in the fancy and have other people have eyes on your rats, so you are breeding good conformation and you know that you're breeding conformation, because going shed blind or rattery blind is a thing that happens, and it is not anyone's fault, but if you aren't seeing any of the rats and other people aren't seeing your rats, it's really easy to miss the faults that you're breeding into your rats. So I think that's really important, whether that is going to shows, or for some people that is, you know, having like baby picking parties with their friends and like seeing like which rats are the better rats in the litter to keep and things like that. So I think having other people's eyes on your rats is a really important thing that all breeders should have. I think you should be breeding healthy rats, not hormonally aggressive rats, all those sort of things. You should be keeping your rats in a good way. Now, I think there's obviously concessions that a breeder has to make compared to a pet home. We don't have the space to be keeping them exactly how pet homes would keep them. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing or that they're below minimum, but, you know, making sure that housing is adequate and proper and enriching is another important thing. And making sure they have the vet care that they need. So I think it really depends on why the backyard breeder is a backyard breeder, but I do think it's possible. There's plenty of breeders that I've seen on the forum who have done things differently in the past and regret it and then changed and became a better breeder for it. So yeah, I think it's totally possible. It just really depends on that person and what exactly they were doing wrong in the first place. And the last question I've got on Instagram is it a big difference going from 2 to 4 or 5 rats? I think initially it can feel that way because it is double the amount of rats that you had. But it's not, I found at least anyway, getting more rats. The one thing that feels the pressure is the bank account, especially for vet bills. But day to day, going from a group of 2 to a group of 5, I don't feel like that eventually it feels like a big jump at all. Until you go back down to 2 and you're like, oh, this is so much less chaotic. But I think also you've got to keep in mind that obviously your preferences need to be taken into consideration, but the rats' lives and like quality of life need to be taken into consideration. And a group of 4 or 5 is actually far less tense for them or stressful. The dynamics are stabler. And the risk of a lone rat is much, much further away when you have a group of 4 or 5. I think that for an average pet home who wants a small group of rats, that's a good number of rats to have. So yeah, it can feel like a bit of a jump at first, but eventually it does settle down. And it's really important for them to be in a group of that size because of the fact that if you have a pair or even a trio, it's very easy for something to happen and then you get in a lone rat situation. So yeah, I really would recommend a slightly larger group. A small group of like 4 or 5 would be really ideal. And Emiology has when she had rats, that's the size group she kept the entire time she had rats, and it worked out great. I think that's a perfect example of like the smallest size group of rats that you should have. Okay, yeah. And then we're gonna go to YouTube. Somebody asked, how much does it usually cost for a neuter or spay or sick rat where you live? Curious to see the price differences from Canada. Here for a neuter, it's about 600 Canadian dollars, and that's the lowest price you can find. Sick rat's about 300 Canadian dollars just for meds, no operation. For a tumour, it can go to 1,000 Canadian dollars, even if it isn't too big. Pretty expensive. So I have found, and like it really does shock me, that prices over in the US and in Canada are astronomically larger when it comes to vet care. And even here, vet care has been getting more expensive the past couple of years. When I first started keeping rats, vet care was not as expensive as it is now. But some of the numbers that I see, especially these numbers that I see, are shocking to say the least. So for a neuter, I pay $111 currently at the vets. I've had 3 neuters this year, if that's correct. I feel like it is. Yeah, so I've had 3 neuters this year. Yeah, and it was 111. I know that that's just my vets, but I know in general you're looking between 70 and like 200 for a neuter, depending on the vet and the type of services that they have. What else did you say? Sick rats about $300 just for meds, no operation. I would probably say, depending on the price of the medicine that you're needing, some medicine is more expensive than others, and whether you're buying a full bottle or part of a bottle or whatever. In the UK, you're looking at about £40 for a consult, like for the first time consult. Some vets will do sort of like a discount if you're going back for the same thing or whatnot. And then you're also looking at between 20 to maybe 100, 150 pounds for the medication, depending on what the medication is. So for example, Ros for a mammary tumour is on a medicine called Galastop, or Finolac, or Cambogoline. I can't say that one. It is all the same thing. It's basically something that she's on for to keep her mammary tumour small. Now, that drug, for the bottle that she gets about monthly, is about £60. For a bottle of Doxy here, it's about £70. And then things like Alazin, which is what Sashimi and Mara had when they had the pregnancy scare, I guess you could call it. A bottle of Alazin is actually £170. So it can be pretty expensive, depending on the medication, but nowhere near as expensive as the prices you have over there. It's actually insane to me. And it sounds a lot of money, but I'm not sure how much 600 Canadian dollars is here. I'm going to ask Google. Okay, Google, how many pounds is 600 Canadian dollars?
600 Canadian dollars is approximately £332.82.
So that's actually not far off the prices here. So 300, you can be looking to pay up to 200, 250. So it's not actually that much more, but obviously Canadian dollars are like worth half the pound as the Great British pound is. So the rates are very different. So it sounds like a different amount, but it's actually not that bad. But yeah, crazy prices. Next question is, I'm curious about more updates on the rattery. How soon do you think you'll start pairing rats and breeding them? So that specific question, how soon do I think I'll start pairing rats and breeding them? Probably next year. Probably towards the winter of 2025 and spring of 2026, because I don't currently have any breeding does, and they would need to be 6 months or older at the time of breeding. The current plan regarding my foundations, where I'm looking to get them from, those does are a similar age to my new baby boys, so they'll be ready to be paired in sort of 6 months time. Then you're looking at 3 months from pairing to when kittens go home, so that's 9 months until they come to me. And then you're looking at 6 months from that, at least, from when I would be looking at breeding them. And then obviously then there's like 3 months of like raising the litter. So realistically, not until spring 2026 will I have any babies available for homing. That sounds crazy, but that I know the time will go really fast. It always does. Like in my head, I just decided that I wanted to start breeding, and that was actually in February, and now it's October. That was like 8 months ago. So I know it won't go that slowly. And it may feel like I'm talking about it soon, very soon. I know a lot of the breeders don't prefer to talk about it until, you know, they're ready to pair, and that's fair enough. That like, if that works for them, that works for them. But for me, I'm obviously very open about what I share, and I talk about everything. And because I like to talk about myself, and because of my channel and things like that. So I'm sharing a different perspective, and a lot of breeders will have decided that they wanted to breed years and years before they actually have the rats that they can breed or actually pair rats. So the timescales is a lot longer than people actually think, because even the sort of having kitten, that from pairing to having kittens is 3 months. That's a quarter of the year from pairing the rats to having the kittens, if everything works out. And sometimes those reabsorb, sometimes they don't take. So yeah, not for a while, like not for a good while, but the breeding does, having them and raising them and looking after them is pretty soon, but not super soon, like at least 9 months. And I'm going to have this time now to settle with the rats that I have, and get my numbers down a little bit before all that crazy starts. But yeah, that's the update on my breeding situation. I really want to make a sort of like welcome to my rattery kind of video, explaining my like plans and stuff, but I'm waiting to make that video until I'm a bit more certain about when my foundations are going to come home and where they'll be from and things like that. But there will be a video on it, don't worry, and I will go through my whole breeding process and talk to you about it on my channel. I really want to share some insights on that, because I think pet homes don't really understand everything that goes on with breeding, and it can sometimes lead to sort of like a tumultuous relationship between pet homes and breeders. But I also think there's plenty and plenty of people who would love to become a breeder, and they need the insight of what it's actually like before they decide to do it. So yeah, I will be making lots more videos about that when it happens, but it's not going to be for a while. I love to hear your personal experience on the difference between owning male and female rats personality, behaviour wise. I decided I'm going to make a full video on that in a little bit, so I won't go into that today. And then the last question is, have you ever had some rats that just do not get along? Like they could not be in the same group or they would fight. Also, any tips for how to handle a situation like that? I have 2 boys that do not get along at all, and they need to be kept in 2 separate groups. So I actually have had a rat that was quite complicated when it comes to intros. That was Remy. He was my heart rat. I actually have a tattoo of him right here, but I've got long sleeve shirt on, so I'm not going to be able to show you. But he was actually a really anxious rat, and he came to me as an old man. He was 26 months old, so kind of set in his ways. He'd lived in a pair his whole life, and his brother had died. And by the time he came to me, he was just very, very anxious about rats and meeting new rats. He did get implanted because of his age. I didn't want to risk neutering him, so he got implanted. And I think at first I think he had some hormone spikes, which can happen after the implant, but I also think that having the less amount of testosterone in his body made him actually more anxious for a little while. And it took a long time to get him introduced to our group. And part of me regrets how long it took, because he was alone for longer than I'd like, for many months. One day I just went for it and it worked, and I'm thankful that I did that. But I've never experienced sort of a rat that had... I know it can happen, but I've never personally experienced a rat where there's a specific rat they don't get along with. But it can happen. I would just like to ask more questions about the situation. Like, are they neutered? How old they are, things like that. And that would probably give me a bit more insight to be able to answer your question. So if you have that more detail, if you could give me a bit of a background in the comments of this video, I can answer that for you. But yes, it is totally possible. Some rats just don't get along, like some people we just don't get along with, and that's totally fine. And I think some people forget that. So it is entirely possible. Okie dokie. Thanks very much for watching this video. I know it was a bit disjointed, but yeah, I love actually making this sort of like vlog kind of casual video. I do love the sit down videos as well, but I do like this type of video. And you guys do like it as well. So yeah, anyway, thanks very much for watching. Do stick around and subscribe. You can also join my channel memberships, and I'm planning, if I get people to join, that there will be sort of like members only videos and members only updates. You can look down there and see all the actual perks. But yeah, thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.